I took pictures of all our vacations, and I was sure I would be a photojournalist. I wanted to work for life. In fact, I was so committed to that idea, I went to a vocational school. BOCES, which stands for the Board of Cooperative Educational Services, is a Long Island trade school. It had a rep as being the idiot school because it was mostly for people who weren't headed to college. It was where you unloaded kids. I did well in high school, and my guidance counselor begged me not to go there. Howard actually still makes fun of me on the show for going there. It offered refrigeration, HVAC, auto body, graphic arts, cosmetology, and photography courses. Most of the guys were into auto body, and most of the girls were into cosmetology. In the 11th and 12th grades, I did a half day at my high school, and along with Steve, who also took photography, a half day at BOCES. I loved it. That's what I planned on doing with my life. Frank's father ran a camera store and photo processing shop in Rockefeller Center, and he would lend me cameras. When I graduated from high school, my dad bought me a used Nikon FM from the Associated Press sports photographer for Long Island, who was a friend of his. I still have it in my closet. During my senior year in high school, Anthony and his wife moved to Austin. They decided to settle there after passing through on a road trip to Central America. I applied to the University of Texas because it had a great photography program, and I got in. I bought a plane ticket to visit that Easter and even had a check ready to hand over for a deposit. If I liked it, I was going. But the weekend I was supposed to visit, Anthony's father-in-law got sick and died suddenly. Anthony and his wife came home and decided they had to stay in New York for a while. They couldn't leave her mother alone. I panicked. My plan was to go to Austin, move in with my brother, and by my sophomore year, get in-state tuition. Now I didn't know when he'd be back. I canceled that trip and changed my plans. It was April of my senior year, and I had nowhere to go. I was scrambling big time. My dad had seen Anthony blow off college, and Stephen simply decided it wasn't for him. He wasn't going to let me do the same thing. So he said to me, just go someplace locally for a semester or two and figure out your next move. Growing up on Long Island, there were 3 universities and 1 junior college, Nassau Community College. Everyone called it the University of Uniondale or the 13th grade. No way I was going to go there. It was literally walking distance from my house. It was a longer walk for me to go to high school than to go to Nassau Community College. Then there was Hofstra University, across the street from Nassau Community College, and a great school. My buddy Gary Bennett's father was the dean of admissions, and I knew I could get into there no problem. But still, I couldn't go to college where I went to high school. I had to move a little bit. C.W. Post was another local option, but I just didn't like it. And then there was Adelphi, which was about 20 minutes away. My father and I went to an open house at Adelphi, and we got so taken to the cleaners. I wanted to study photography. Adelphi had photography classes, but no photography major. We walked around the displays set up for potential students, and I met the guy who eventually became the chairman of the communications department. We started talking, and he told me, communications, it's just like photography. They have cameras, they have lights, it's the same thing. Okay. And that's how I became a communications major at Adelphi. I was going to live at home, take a few photography classes, and then figure out my next move. The plan changed before I even started school. During orientation, I went on a tour of the communications department and took a walk by the radio station. It was like seeing wrestling for the first time in junior high. There was a guy sitting at a radio console, and the on-air sign was lit. He looked so cool, so fucking cool, and I just lost it. I thought to myself, I am getting in there. My feelings were confirmed that first day of school. I took an elementary radio class, and the professor brought in a boombox. This was 1979. It was a teacher's first year, too. She was a gay woman who lived in the village. She was young and cutting edge and carrying a boombox, and I was into it. Then she said, we're going to do an exercise. I'm going to turn on different stations, and based on what you hear, tell me what you're listening to. Are you kidding me? This was a college class? I was nailing every station, every kind of music. I had a natural aptitude for this. That first week, I signed up to work with the radio station. There wasn't a lot of competition, and it wasn't long before I was doing a newscast on the school's channel, which was broadcast by something called a carrier current. That meant only people on the Adelphi campus could hear us, so basically no one. I didn't give a shit. A girl and I were co-anchors. We had to be in the studio by 4:30 in the afternoon to get ready for a 6 p.m. broadcast. We'd read through the news wires, rip up stories, decide who was going to say what, and then flip the switch. God, it was awful. I mean, really horrible. I don't know if a single person was listening, but I was on the radio, hanging with other people who liked doing exactly what I like to do. The next semester, I got a gig working for 90.3 FM, which was still a school station, but at least it was one you could find on the local radio dial. One afternoon, Vinny heard me reading the news and he called to ask me, "How come you sound like Ronald McDonald?" I made my voice rise and fall while I did the broadcast because I thought that's what sounded professional. No one was teaching us to be ourselves. The point was to be in front of a microphone and get comfortable, which I did eventually. I could tell my parents dug hearing me on the air. One Sunday night, all my relatives were over for one of our weekly dinners. Even for occasions as casual as those, my mom spent the entire day cooking. We also broke out the appetizer table. I left to do a show when the Catronio ladies were in full-throated debate about life and sauce. I figured things would have quieted down by the time I got home. Instead, as I walked through the door, I heard an unfamiliar sound. Clapping. My dad had made everyone stay and listen to me on the radio. He was psyched, just totally loved it. And he loved that I loved it. Halfway through my first semester, I was looking to sell my photo equipment. That was it for me. I was having a good time in radio, and I knew I could be good at it. I was making plans in my head. I thought I was going to get into radio and be the next muckraking superstar.
Chapter 10. The coolest radio station ever, and sticking it to Rick Cerrone. Go Mets.
Once you graduated from pop music in high school, the coolest New York radio station to listen to was WLIR-FM. It was progressive, playing the Allman Brothers and the Grateful Dead, but also new acts like Steve Forbert. It was the laid-back hippie spot on the dial. The whole vibe seemed to say, we don't care about making money, we just care about the people. All the best concerts for music snobs were sponsored by WLIR. LIR also had a left-leaning, aggressive news department. On air, the reporters didn't act like talking heads reading copy. They projected opinions, liberal ones, into every story they broadcast. They also had a great segment called News Blimps, where they mashed up real news sound bites with bits of music and comedy. Today, that stuff is commonplace, but back then, it was cutting edge. The studio was located in the shittiest part of Hempstead. It was crap, really. Because it was WLIR, every kid studying radio on Long Island wanted an internship there, including me. I knew that when I was a junior and eligible for the program, I'd try to get it. Luckily, I didn't have to wait that long. Just before freshman year ended, my radio teacher, the woman who brought the boombox to class that first day of school, asked me to dub a TV program for her. It was a 15-hour special series about the history of rock and roll that she wanted to use in class the following year. To her, the job seemed like a pain in the ass. There's no way to speed up dubbing. You need to let the tape roll